Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Precipice Lifestyle Inspired podcast, where we do interviews with really interesting people like Miss Monica here. And we work on topics that we hope will help our listeners, that's you, find the resources, tools, and support that they need to be their best inspired selves. So how are you today?
I'm great. How are you?
I am good, other than I'm freezing my tuchus off because I live in Wisconsin and I someday will choose not to. I doubt that, but it's cold, super cold.
You will. I survived the Midwest as well. I'm from Chicago originally, so
Oh,
I moved to California about, 14 years ago, maybe longer. So you can make it
you
out this
make it.
way. I promise.
Yeah. I moved a lot as a kid. So we lived in Tennessee and Arizona and Michigan and Wisconsin. And I'm a meaty gal, and it doesn't help. It's still cold. It's still cold. It's still cold.
I never got used to it, so I hear you on that. But it's cold in California, but I won't tell you what the weather is like because that would
You
just be
know,
mean. So
well, someone told me though, like I got a lot of people recently from San Diego area, like a lot of interviewees in the last couple of days. And someone said it was like 40, which I think is probably like the frozen tundra for you. I mean, that's okay for us, but for you guys, that must be like really cold.
it is definitely, we have to wear a jacket, that's like the big thing.
As long as you
But no,
have a
I tell
jacket.
you, yes, I do. Well, I have to. I mean, I was never into the cold. Even like Chicago is legit like the coldest ever. I mean, I would like hide between buildings when I was downtown just to avoid like the wind factor. It
It's
was
really
just
windy.
brutal. Yeah, it's brutal.
We don't have as
So,
much wind here, but I also don't live in the sticks. So I live in Milwaukee proper. And so we have some buildings, but we don't have them high enough to do like the Chicago wind tunnel. So it's
it's
not
a
great.
real thing. Yeah,
It's a thing.
it was major. Yeah.
I'm not a big fan. So I'm sure it's cold though, so I won't feel bad about it. But so I really think what you're doing is interesting, and I love talking to fellow moms who are trying to sort of integrate their life, right? Integrate your work, and you have two young boys, so you're a boy mom, which is its own fun, extra interesting qualities. So could you just tell everybody a little bit about like what you're doing right now and who you're serving?
Sure. I think it helps to kind of understand where I come from too. So I was just going to give a little background because there is some irony in how this story plays. So I'm originally from Chicago. I used to work in corporate marketing and advertising for big brands like McDonald's and
Mhm.
Burger King and all the big food guys. So the irony doesn't escape me that now I've done kind of a 180 and I'm really into promoting family wellness prevention. And that was basically through my own experience. So, having done the corporate thing, having worked on how to position products and even services that, you know, cater to healthy living, even though that was a big loophole or gray area of how you position certain things as health. I can understand culturally how we've been sort of misled or misinformed on what is healthy. There's so much contradictory information. And it wasn't until I became a mom for the first time, almost 6 years ago, which is kind of crazy. This is about as long as I've had a sabbatical on the corporate side of things. So um, it wasn't until I was like feeding another little human and figuring out, oh my God, like what is in all of the products that I'm feeding my child, that I started to actually care. And so I think that for me was like the big aha moment where I started to realize, wow, motherhood is like the first time that I actually even noticed the type of ingredients and the quality of ingredients that I was using to fuel myself. Even though historically I believed that I was healthy and that I was doing all the right things. And so that for me was like sort of led me down this sort of wellness path. And so I've really been able to parlay just understanding how we position products and services as healthy and how to use it for good. So now I've started my own practice called Calibrate Your Wellness. That name itself was intentional just because I do believe that wellness exists within all of us. We just have been misinformed, right? And so I'm trying to break it down for parents, and I'm on a mission to really help young families establish healthy habits right from the start, because this is when it begins. And I basically am like the living case study of how to really make this work. And it really starts with the parents. So that was a really empowering moment for me as a mom to really realize, like, I'm in control, no one else is in control, and then you can really model the right behavior for your children. So
Yeah, I think
yeah.
for me, so I grew up really poor, and so we didn't actually ever have enough to eat. And then when I got older, I wasn't thinking of quality at all, right? I had started out more worried about quantity. But for me, it was the same. My first child, I have four small humans. Um, and my first child I had at 28, and I decided to nurse, which was not a really popular decision for a traveling corporate working mom. Um, and it was then when I was like trying to like get enough milk and realizing for my baby I had to drink so much more water. I was like, wow, this is almost like the craziest thing. But it was because I was drinking like so much under what I should have been. Even a friend of mine who was nursing at the same time is Indian, and her milk smelled like the spices. And I was like, oh, right, like what's going in's coming out, like literally. And it was a eye-opening for us too. We made baby food with the first kid, or like cloth diapers. We tried very hard. The fourth kid didn't go that way, but um even like the food tasted weird, like because we would just like make peas, but not peas from a can, because like there was stuff in that, right? So you make regular peas and you're like, what does this taste so different? Because there's no salt in it, there's no preservatives, there's nothing in it. And I remember being kind of surprised, like, well, what are we eating? like like what are we eating? And then you don't actually want to know though. Sometimes when you look,
No,
like,
ignorance is bliss in this sense. I will say that once you understand the correlation between how food is fuel for your body, you become very protective of what you put in your body. And I always use this like really, I'm a boy mama, as you mentioned, so I use a car analogy because cars are everything right now. Like I never knew so much about vehicles
I was
or
thinking
how many models.
dinosaurs.
Oh
Or
yeah, dinosaurs are big too, but cars right now is like everything. So I like to say that, you wouldn't put cheap gas in like a Ferrari or like a really nice car. You would never dream of it. You would actually protect that, and because the engine would break down. Well, same as your body. Why would you feed it things that just don't serve it properly, right? And so it's just activating that awareness level for people to really start to connect the dots into like really finding what works for them, right?
yeah.
So,
I just
yeah.
wonder, like, we even learned about food differently so I actually went to the Health Coach Institute, which is, I know you, I looked up your stuff, your Institute of Integrated Nutrition. They're totally different. You guys do a lot more in-depth nutrition study, but when I started learning about food, like even the level of macronutrients, micronutrients, those types of things, I realized that I I wasn't really taught. We had health class, we had science class, but we were taught about things that were more, I want to say, more political. Like I live in the dairy state, and everyone had, like, milk was huge, right? You had to drink lots of milk and lots of cheese, and like make sure you get everything in the pyramid. And no one ever really talked about the fuel, like that it was for you and that it was part of you, like you put it in you and it became part of who you are. Instead it was sort of like, make sure you hit your, mark on the pyramid, and no one really ever told you why. And then when you're a parent, like, how do you can't educate your kids on something you don't know about, right? That you don't have a
So
good
true.
foundational knowledge on. So I feel bad for some like new moms. Gosh, it's already so freaky. There's like so much you have to do and learn. And then all of a sudden you realize like, oh wait, I'm like feeding this little person like from me. Like even what I eat now begins to matter so much more. I made some changes. I don't think I made enough, but it was definitely eye-opening how weird everything tasted. We had an Icelandic au pair. She freaked out when she came. She's like, "Why do you put sugar in everything?" And I was like, "What are you talking about?" She's like, "Your milk tastes like crap." She's like, "What do you dump like a pile of sugar?" And I'm like, "No, we just go to the store and buy the milk." And she's like, "It's sweet." And she said the same thing about the bread. And I was like, "Bread?" So I started looking, I'm like, "Oh my gosh, we actually put sugar in the bread." I would have thought about it. I just thought it was like grains that were cooked, right? So we don't even we're doing things even other countries aren't doing. And we have been for so long that we don't even realize that milk isn't sweet, like that sweet.
Right. Well, no, it was very controversial in my with my pediatrician. That's another light bulb moment too. I think that a lot of new parents realize that their pediatricians don't even, I mean, technically, most medical doctors, I shouldn't say all, don't receive much nutritional information. Actually, only 9 hours of their medical schooling is dedicated to nutrition. Now, I know they're making huge strides to make that change. I know in Europe, they're even adding like a culinary feature to the medical school process so that so doctors actually learn how to, I don't know, use the kitchen, how to cook, and understand how ingredients really are part of a medicinal protocol for certain patients, or even as a prevention matter for people. So I think that when I started telling my pediatrician, hey, we don't drink milk. So I've never, for the most part, I've always been pretty lactose free because I just never did well with it. Um, and so we decided that my kids would not have milk as well. And that was kind of a big like hoopla with my pediatrician at the time, because he was like, well, is he having any other dairy sources? Like he was really, really concerned. And I said, no, I don't believe that he needs to have, milk as his part of his nutrition. And so that was like a big, moment where I realized, wow, like how is it that my pediatrician doesn't understand that there is a broad scope of how to raise your child that's not going to be sort of catastrophic to their development, or try to instill fear, or almost like dismiss your own motherly intuition. Like, no, I don't. I know that my child doesn't really require that. I don't require that. And so things like that. I felt like a lot of disconnection between the healthcare system and supporting motherhood, supporting this new process of this new identity of raising your child. So it's one of the reasons I try to do a lot of education on the forefront with birthing centers and working with doulas specifically, because I feel like any parent that goes to any of those particular outlets for birthing, I think is more open-minded to an alternative approach to raising your child more holistically. So we do a lot of prenatal nutrition, and even understanding that, like, even before you conceive, how important it is that your system, your microbiome is at a certain state, that when you conceive your child, and how that actually has a long lasting impact on the development of your child, and sort of the markers. So there's a lot of prevention that could happen, even at, like you were saying, the school level. Understanding it from the beginning would really help alleviate the learning curve, right, of making habit changes. So
I think that's is another interesting, so that we had the opposite happen with our pediatrician. Thankfully, he's literally an amazing man. Everyone loves him. But so in the dairy state, like, actually it's funny, California, you guys think you are too, but they I was born lactose intolerant, like badly, where they tried like goat's milk and all this, and I couldn't, like, I wasn't growing. It was really, really, really bad. After getting pregnant, though, my body stopped being lactose intolerant, which I was like, what the holy heaven? But I think your body does whatever it thinks it needs to do. But the pediatrician was worried that our kids are getting too much milk, because we thought, well, we're not, and we're like, we're doing good things. We're not giving them juice. We give them water and we give them milk. And he's like, how many glasses of milk are you giving them? we're like 4 cups. He's like, a day? Like big cups or little cups, you know? And I thought that we were like, I thought we were supposed to do that. I thought that was like the right thing to do. Um, and then one of my 4 children is on the autism spectrum. And so when someone has like a diagnosis that maybe a lot of opinions exist on prevention or helping, food becomes, when people run out of options, they start looking at like regular stuff, right? Where they're
Mhm.
like, there's no magic pill. Maybe we should look at food. There was a lot of things about like, you know, should she go casein free? Should she be gluten free? Just, you know, my oldest daughter, all by herself, like she's meat free. She just doesn't, it just doesn't agree with her. Um, but I think there's something interesting about, like, I think everyone has a different foundation of what food is and how to actually use it. It's not just a recreational activity, but that there's like a reason for it. No,
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Well, bio individuality is a real thing. And that's one of the reasons why I encourage, you know, basically a lot of my programs is really empowerment. It's teaching them tools that, I always jokingly say, like, I do not want clients to be with me forever. I genuinely want them to, have the foundation and then fly away and be able to adapt to any environment that they're in, because our bodies change through the years, through different stages in life. And to be able to have your compass, your internal compass of what is the right things for you, or to even recognize your body's natural feedback, right? And cravings and, things like that, or changes in your palate, those are strong indication. That's your body's way of saying, hey, this is not agreeing with me, or, perhaps like making small changes will help you feel better. And there's so much, as you may know as well, like nutrition is just one aspect of your health and wellness. There are like 12, areas, if you will, that make up your well-being. And but you start with nutrition first, because that's the first one. That's like the center, right? That's what creates that foundation for you to be able to understand your energy levels, other markers of your life that will help you support being more vibrant and having more energy. Because I think, again, just like we've been misinformed with nutrition, we also attribute age or even motherhood of lacking energy, or being tired all the time, or feeling lethargic, or all of these things that we just get accustomed to because we believe it's a life stage, or it's associated to our age even. And, I've never felt stronger being almost 40 this year than I did 10 years ago at 30. And it really had to do with just understanding, like tuning in, to yourself. And that's another like beautiful practice that we can teach our little ones, is understanding that correlation, right? So that they
Yeah.
can be better judges for themselves.
Yeah, I think I completely agree with that. Kind of just paying attention to yourself, because our body really does know. And I was literally having a conversation yesterday with a client about how many things do you tolerate because it's not acute, it's just the dull ache, right? But the dull ache is like your body nicely telling you that things hurt and you should probably make a change. It's the acute where we run to the doctor, right? Because our, like, the bone is protruding out of our leg. But for 8 months, your whole thigh hurt. And I think sometimes we have to slow down so we can even have an awareness that something isn't settling right, or doesn't feel right, or that food, maybe the best food in the world, green beans, right? Good for you, great food. And you personally have a bad body reaction to green beans. Well, you don't know that if you're munching on the car and running down the street and going down. It's just hard to tune in to the signals you're being given. But I think for me, that has been really important to try to help with the kids, to just like, well, I don't like that. I don't feel good from eating that. Good. Like, then we should, like, don't eat that. It's probably not good for you. Or
Or even to be silly, like when they pass gas or something, like these types of things, or belching or anything like that, or those are just small little cues. And I know one thing that helped as a family when I was starting my health journey, I would have a little notebook and I would track, and, and it wasn't as meticulous as like writing down quantities or macros and all that nonsense. It was just being mindful of the ingredients and like the time of day, and then just like how I felt, you know, um, and just keeping track of that. Because what's really tricky about the health process is that our minds are so powerful and we can convince ourselves and we can talk ourselves out of things or into things, and we truly believe, oh, I'm being healthy, or I didn't have that much things, or I eat healthy all the time, I don't know what's going on. And when you actually hold yourself accountable by physically becoming aware of the patterns, then you can start to be like, okay, now you can make informed changes that will actually lead to results. And so I created like a daily tracker template on my, so that's a freebie that I wanted to make sure your listeners can take some practical advice from this conversation, is to, I have a link, basically I have like a resource link, which we could probably include in the show notes,
Sure.
that they can download for 10 days. It's just a one sheeter, super basic. Again, it's just making those connections of what ingredients make up your meals throughout the day. And then also what digestive reactions you have. And so there's a whole way for you to track, bowel movements and other barometers for digestion, as well as mood. That's a big one, right? Like if you feel like lethargic or a lot of anxiety or, uneasiness, there's a lot of connections between certain ingredients that can cause that.
Yeah. I
So
think we're sensitive to that with our daughter, just because we know like radical mood changes can come with a particular food, and we're thought. And she's also gets hangry. She like really gets hangry. And she's a hobbit. She eats like third breakfast, but then like
yep.
doesn't eat a lot during the rest of the day, which is like okay, but a lot of fun. So I really appreciate all of this great information. At www.calibrateyourwellness.com. There was like tons of other resources there as well. You have like a nice little link tree of different the freebies and different ways to contact you. But what would a perfect, like a really ideal client or ideal person that you could help, that you're like, yes, please call me, I want to help you, empower you to be your best self, what would that look like for you?
I am really passionate about helping young parents, or even if you are you're expecting a baby. So I've had a lot of prenatal clients, and I just love the energy that is with young motherhood, right? There's so much hope, and you're just so amenable to change because your body is physically changing, that I encourage anyone, even if you are expecting, or you're even trying to conceive too. Fertility is another issue that I know you and I could probably talk so much about all the stages, but that has become such a big area of the work that I've been focusing on as well, because I do believe that, our bodies represent, what we're able to carry forward. And a lot of it can be, just if we address our lifestyle barometer, markers, and our nutrition, it could set us up for success in even conceiving. So I know that that's sort of a near and dear topic to my heart, because I know there's just a lot of moms out there that are wanting to be moms or wanting to have a second child, and things have changed. And so I like to really empower that. So I don't know if I answered the question, but I really welcome young parents, expecting moms, and ideally, if your children are under 7, that is a really nice sweet spot. The last sort of nugget of wisdom that I want your listeners to get, because this was also really illuminating, was about brain development and how between the ages of 0 to 7 in a child's life, they are basically in you're programming your child in their subconscious mind. And basically what that means is that 95% of our actions live in the subconscious mind, meaning you think you're actually choosing what you're doing, but you're actually kind of on autopilot. And so our children, when they're under 7 years old, they absorb everything, all the words that they hear, the environment in which they're in. It's literally like a little recorder, right? They're little mirrors. They reflect back what they see, they absorb, and they actually take it as their belief. And that's a really powerful thing, because if you can just nurture their self-love for themselves and for, like accepting themselves, understanding themselves, tuning into who they are. Imagine if you had that foundation as an adult. That is, you know,
Yeah,
that would avoid a lot of therapy.
yeah,
Yes.
that's what we spend like the
Yes.
30 years after that trying to get back to, right?
Yes. Yes. And that's why they say, like, you have these midlife crises, is because you're actually, there's only so much you can suppress throughout your life, that at a certain point you have to come to terms with things that happen in our childhood. And again, it doesn't always lead to trauma, but it's important to know is that perhaps a comment that you heard when you were little, you had this sort of, inner self talk, like the
Mhm.
inner critic. I know for me that was a huge one. And it wasn't until I started to realize, oh, the connections with my childhood. So again, it's all about fine tuning from within. It really does start there. And basically, if I could help parents who are raising young ones to change that conversation internally for themselves, for the little ones, then I think we can actually impact the new generation of really mindful, intentional young people, right? To kind of get us out of the mess we're in.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, yeah,
That's beautiful. So,
yeah.
we'll make sure in the show notes we'll have the URL to get there, some of the freebies that you mentioned, and of course you can help anyone. But it sounds like you really feel inspired and empowered to work with people who have little ones, or are hoping for little ones, or are cooking a little one.
Hmm.
That sounds like, and they're all so cute. Now I'm so past the baby stage. I'm at the like, oh, you have a baby. I'd love to hold it. You can have it back now. Yeah, I'm there now.
I hear you on that one.
I'm like, no, poor, no, no, I'm good. But thank you so much. I appreciate you taking time out. I know you have a really busy practice and busy mom with your little guys, but it was really nice meeting you. And hopefully you can stay in touch and give us updates so our listeners know what you've got going on for any programs or anything that launches in the future. Okay.
Beautiful. Thank you so
All
much
right.
for your
Thank
time.
you.
All
Bye.
right. Take care. Bye bye.